very good evening to you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to Man Up. Hii ndio kona ya wanaume, where we sit down and discuss pertinent issues that affect men. They usually say men don't talk. On Man Up, we open our mouths and we talk serious issues and we try and find solutions to some of the issues we face as men. We've been doing a series on personal development and we continue on that trend. Today we are going to be looking at investments. Money is a big issue for men. When you don't have some money in your pocket, you feel like you're worth nothing. You feel like, no, hauna sauti, sit at the corner, we will call you when we need you. But when you have money, you feel like you own the world. But then again, you get to your mid-40s, midlife crisis and everything, and sometimes you look back and you're thinking, I've not put anything aside. I've got nothing to show for the many years I've been working. Hata kakitu pale kamulu hakuna, yani, you're dry. You have school fees you're paying, you have rent you're paying, and all these other things. And you feel like, man, I've wasted half my life. So tonight we're looking at investments. And as men, what are some of the lessons we can learn as we look at investments? I've got two wonderful gentlemen in studio with me to help me get through this conversation. First and foremost, we've got the Regional Director of Nehemiah Project International Ministries, Frank Kitonga. Frank, how are you doing? Karibu sana.
Asante.
Good to have you.
Good evening, viewers.
Good evening. You used to watch those debates on TV back in the day.
VOA.
Good evening,
VOA.
viewers. Now, what was the other one? Dunia Wiki.
Yes.
We also have Pastor Arnold Orono, who is pastoring at Hekima Church. Pastor, karibu sana.
Asante.
Good to have you.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Money and investments. This is a big one for men. You know, when you don't have anything in your pocket, you feel like you don't have a voice, you're not worth anything. And I think I want to begin this discussion by looking at, there's a lot that's being said today about financial literacy. And I keep wondering, why are we never taught about money? Even in our schools. This is just general, not just specifically for men, but we are never taught about money. We are taught about getting a good job. But now the reward of that good job, that good salary, no one teaches us how to manage that money, how to grow that money. You know, even our parents sitting us down. Did your parent ever take you to work and show you this is how I work and this is how I get money?
I did. I think I went to my dad's office once.
Really? You're privileged?
Yes, that was actually very nice.
Wow. Pastor, what about you? Did your dad ever take you, this is what I do, this is how I make money?
No, not exactly. My dad passed on when we were young, but my mom used to take us to office, but we just used to play. That's all we used to do here.
You guys have an advantage. Me, Mr. Okumu, what happened? You never took me to your office. So
I think we should get psychologists here.
yes, Mr. Okumu, we need to do a program with you. So why are we never taught about money?
I actually don't know. As in, it's a good question. I'm not sure I'm the expert to answer it, but it just doesn't come up. My first experience of learning money was my dad used to, you remember the 10 cents, ngoch?
Yes, yes.
They used to be counted, and I'm sure many guys don't know what is ngoch, but 10 cents are counted, and then he'll say, Dad, I'm going to a certain place. Then he will count for you 2 bob, which was a lot of
coins.
You'll be given this, now you get into a bus. My earliest is money the value of it wasn't. And I'll give you a very quick story. No more stories today, I hope. I was seated with my son waiting for Nduthi. On a form, just in a place, not very, just seated waiting. And so we were waiting for someone to drop something. And then my son said, oh, Dad, we are very rich, aren't we? Now there's a lady seated right opposite who was waiting for Nduthi with us. And I thought, are we rich? I didn't think so. But the guy thought we are very rich.
Yes.
And I'm a man of faith. So I couldn't say no. But I could say yes.
Declaring those things that are not as though they were.
So I'm not actually wondering, this lesson on money really is not I don't see it as an easy lesson we've learned.
Okay.
I've learned money, if I've learned anything, much later in life.
And many of us probably learn about money through the mistakes we make. You know, and the reason I'm starting this conversation with that whole aspect of financial literacy is because I don't think you can get to the place of investing if you don't understand how money works and the value of money. I don't know what you think, Pastor.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. You can't invest without understanding the value of money. I'm just thinking about your question earlier to him. I think that over generations, cultures have changed.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about our fathers and our forefathers, maybe our fathers were a transition generation, but our forefathers used to have land. You know, they used to acquire large parcels of land. They used to have cattle. And then they used to invest in children. You know, the average family then was what, 8, 9, 10 children. And their investment in their future was their children.
Yes.
So the way they used to save was to have more children. You know, but now generations later, you know, things have changed. Living then was very simplistic, sort of, you know, as long as you had a roof over your head, as long as you had a meal to eat, things were fine. But today, that roof over our head is no longer a guarantee.
Yeah.
You know, it depends on where the roof is. How far is the roof from your place of work? You know, maybe even what color is the roof? Is it mabati? Is it, you know, all those things come into play.
Yeah.
So I think those are the changes that we've been going through, especially since independence, where you come from a more established community, you come from Commonwealth where they valued money.
Yeah.
You come into this community where they didn't value money. They valued more your land, your possessions, your children. Our value systems are very, very different. So there's been that exchange of value systems as we go along, as we get more educated and exposed. And that's probably the reason why it is becoming increasingly critical that our generation learns the ropes of money, because is it that song says, money makes the world go round. We learn the ropes of money so that we may share this to the next generation, the coming generation.
I love what you're saying, because I remember listening to, I think, a gentleman from Zimbabwe, if I'm not wrong.
Strive Masio?
No, not that one. Just another guy. Yeah. And he was talking about how even back then, with our traditional way of life, investment was a thing that was taught. And he was saying, okay, times are changing, you come to the city, you get a job. You know, and your father is pressing you, you need to send back money home, you need to buy a cow, you need to buy a cow, you need to buy a cow. You buy a cow and he keeps telling you, your cow needs to eat, your cow needs to eat. Eventually he tells you, your cow gave birth. Now you have 2 cows, you need to keep in, so that by the time your time in the city comes to an end and you go back home, you have a herd of cattle somewhere that will ensure that you're provided for. But I find that nowadays the needs for now are so many, we don't think about tomorrow until it comes, especially as men. There's so much demand and pressure put on men. I'm just wondering, how do we navigate through that pressure?
I have a word for you.
Yes, from the Lord.
Ambidextrous.
Eh?
Ambidextrous.
Where is the Google? We need to Google. What does that mean?
This in scripture, let me take you back to scripture. These guys were able to shoot with their left hand.
Yes.
Men of Benjamin, and with their right hand. That ability is ambidexterity.
Oh.
My view is there's a demand on the man now that we've got to be ambidextrous.
Okay.
We've got to be able to manage the future and the present at the same level of prowess.
Wow.
If you can't do that, because sometimes you say, let me invest everything in the future.
Yes.
And then you get sick now and you can't manage your corona scenario. Or you put everything in the now. And then, so both ways, we call ambidextrous businesses are those that can do both at the same time. And I think that's one of the things that the men, whether we want it, in fact, it is now even more, but just in terms of money, you've got to think of tomorrow and today well enough. So forecasting and budgeting all must be done well. Now that skill, whether you'll YouTube, go for a course, listen to whoever. If you don't develop it, it's easy to just to sink or to carry a lot of weight in your heart, where you feel, like you said, when you look back and there's nothing you have, it feels like my future is compromised, or my children's future is compromised. He said about 8, 9 children. I have 5, so I'm not sure in which generation
you're ambidextrous.
Yes. But I have to be very, I feel that weight. As in, where will these children feed from tomorrow? But I have to feed them as well. They have to go to school now.
10 eyes looking at you.
Yes, I have. There's 2 more. From their mother.
Hallelujah.
So you've got to manage that as well.
Very true.
The definition of being able to shoot with both sides is a demand on us, whether we want it.
Or
and
not.
in all honesty, it's more than one side. It's
Yeah.
multiple. Because when you go into the office, you're one person, or in the business world, at home, you're another person,
Yeah.
in church, you're another person,
Yeah.
and all these have to be managed.
Wow.
So-
I'm just wondering, because a good number of people, when you talk to them about investments, their perception is what I am getting is not even enough to sustain me
Yeah.
now. So why are you telling me about a future I don't even know whether I will exist? I don't have enough for now. I can't even think of the future. And I keep wondering, is that a valid excuse?
I don't think it's a valid excuse. I think part of the challenge is a lot of pressure from society. You know, pressure
Okay.
to conform, pressure to have the latest TV, pressure to have, you know, to watch Premier League soccer, pressure to live a certain lifestyle that you cannot afford at that time. So I think that that's where the pressure is coming from. You know, we have a society that is more focused on image. What
Yeah.
image are you portraying? What image are you presenting? And I like what you said about ambidextrous. We're not talking about the future. We're not talking about tomorrow. We are a consumer society that's talking about now. You know, a few years ago, I was doing a study, and they were talking about comparing the Chinese culture to the American culture then. And they're talking about the level of savings in the Chinese culture was up to 30–40%.
Yes.
Whereas the level of savings in the American culture was about 2–3%. And there was so much debt in that culture. So we say we borrowed from the American culture.
Yes.
And we've not borrowed from the Chinese culture.
Yes.
And what I think we need to do, because we're discussing from the foundation of the kingdom, we need to come up with our own kingdom culture. What is the kingdom perspective on the way to multiply wealth, on the way to be ambidextrous? What is the kingdom thinking in this kind of setup? So that I think that's where the challenge has been. And there's a greater demand on pastors now and leaders of congregations. If not the pastor, at least having ministers who are able to train the church community on how to handle wealth.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, I think it's an important part that every year we should talk about wealth. We should talk about wealth creation. We should talk about wealth preservation. We should talk about savings. We should talk about investments. And the more we talk about it in the church community, the more we can begin to fill that gap. Because
Yes.
that gap is there, but we need to begin to fill it.
My friend, you're watching Man Up. Tonight we are looking at investments. As always, I'm giving you 5 minutes, no, 2 minutes to go to the kitchen, grab a cup of water and come back. You have to be, that word is?
Ambidextrous.
You have to be ambidextrous. Cup in one hand, watching with the other. We're taking a short break, we'll be right back.
Tomorrow on Youth on the Move. Contemporary art meets modern lifestyle.
I'm working on a wall mural. It's a kind of like a wall art made of wood.
And later on, an eco-friendly car wash system.
Our model is the future where everything comes to your door. It's called the Uberization.
That's tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. on Youth on the Move.
Welcome back to Man Up. I keep forgetting that word. That word, I've had it today. It has just been. We're talking about investments as we continue with our series on personal development for men. Investments, are you looking ahead or are you just concerned about the here and now? There's something you mentioned, Pastor, about saving. You know, and you mentioned about precept upon precept, nikidogo kidogo, and what you do with that little, then it grows. But I find that even that saving culture, you mentioned China and America, we don't have a saving culture in this. We have a fuliza culture and borrowing. Man, we borrow like I don't know what, you know, and I'm just thinking, where is that taking us?
Yeah, you know, when you talked about the whole issue of, you know, fuliza and savings and so on, I was thinking about the hunter-farmer paradigm. I think that has been around for a while. You know, I first studied from a man called Mensa Otabil.
Yes.
And he talked about how, you know, so Esau was a hunter, and Isaac was a farmer. You know, Esau's brother was a farmer. And, you know, the hunter mentality is ntangukia. You know, so you go out looking for this elephant.
Yes.
You know, and when you capture that elephant, that is it. Everybody
My
eats.
friend, yes.
Everybody eats. That day, everybody
after
celebrates.
party.
Yes, party after party. Unfortunately, with the hunter paradigm, is it won't last, because how long it's not sustainable. How long in that environment are you able to preserve an elephant?
Yeah.
You know, think back to the
Yeah.
days of Esau and Jacob. Sorry, Esau
Yeah.
and Jacob. How long were they able to preserve an elephant? At most maybe a week, 2 weeks. but the farmer is able to build a sustainable system. You know, something that every month you're harvesting something.
A sustainable
and
system.
whatever you're harvesting is able to, you know, meet your needs and meet the needs of the family. And whatever you probably don't harvest, you're able to preserve or keep.
Yeah.
And you know, you're able to moderate everything based, you can control the outcome, because over time you learn to control the outcome. The hunter does not know what he'll land on.
Yeah.
Today he might land on a goat, tomorrow he might land on an elephant, he might land on a deer, and you see, whatever he lands on, because he can't predict what he's going to land on,
Yes.
he cannot preserve it. So what we talk about is developing a farmer paradigm. You know, learn to think like a farmer.
Yeah.
Learn to grow what you have. Learn to identify your space. What is my space? And to grow that space and develop systems to nurture. And because Jacob was a farmer, Jacob had a lot of time to think,
Yes.
to meditate, to
Yes.
ponder. So take time to think, to cultivate creativity around wealth creation, so to may create and grow what you already have. So Esau was the one who was celebrated because the culture then celebrated. I mean, Esau's father loved his meat, and that was what the culture celebrated. But if you look at the one who was most successful in the long term, it was Jacob, because Jacob built a system that was sustainable. And we see this all through the Bible. We see Jacob, we see it in Joseph's days, Joseph establishing a culture of
Yes.
savings and investments.
Yes.
And if you think about that culture that Joseph established, I mean, it was a principle of saving. Think about saving 20% of the grain. You know, you had to build storehouses,
Yeah.
you had to build security systems, you had to build transport, logistic systems. I mean, it was a whole system just to preserve 20% of the grain. So my view on some of these things is let's develop a culture of the farmer culture, a culture of multiplying what we have. And let's talk about it. I agree we come from different theologies.
Yeah.
You know, depending on which part of Kenya you come.
Yeah.
You can stay in a house of 2,000 shillings, but the car you drive is worth 2 million shillings, you know.
My friend.
Those are the environments we come from. You know, we have to show it. We have to show that
Yeah.
we're living the life, you know. But if we keep talking about it, we keep emphasizing it, somewhere along the line, we will wake up to that reality and we realize that we need to make adjustments to our living.
I like what you're saying, building systems, you know, because once you have put the systems in place, you know, I mean, things change. It's like the story, this is a common story of two people were hired to fetch water, you know, and one kept going back and forth with a bucket. The other one slowly started building a system. He looked like he was not doing anything. But when the water began to flow through the pipeline he had laid up, man, he was just
Yes.
anaweka mguu kwa
Chilling.
meza.
Yes.
Anafungua tu mfereji inatiririka.
Yes.
Yeah. There's something you had mentioned to me before we started this recording, and maybe you can share a bit of it. You had talked about, you know, if you have something that can just give you a shilling, you know, that whole concept and mentality. I think it's very important for this conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that hunter-farmer thing
Yes.
amazing, eh?
Yeah.
A big lesson.
Yes. Hapo nimechukua kasamba.
Hapo, acha.
Are you a hunter or a farmer?
Make sure you send the offering.
He's building a pipeline.
He's creating a system. He's creating a system.
Yeah.
If you're making, however, let's say you're making 40,000 shillings now or 400,000 a month right now. It's coming in, you're making it, it's going on. It's not easy to sustain that.
Yeah.
Making it, forget spending it. Just creating that value that somebody is willing to exchange that value with money.
Yeah.
So, and you're probably 30, 40. It takes time. You're probably doing 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
That's not easy, but you're doing it. Think at 70 years old. I have clients who are that age and they're trying to multiply, say, create that even half.
Okay.
And they need to. They may even have the experience. But let me tell you the energy, because really what you sell is energy plus your mind. You don't have that energy anymore. So if you're going to depend on the same thing you depended on when you were 40, at 70,
Yeah.
it will not give you. You will not be able to give value. So you have to therefore think like a farmer and say, now what can I do now so that at 70, I will not have this energy, it will give me what I need. And that's that little thing we call passive income.
Passive income.
Now, I learned from somebody a very good lesson. Say the hardest thing is give yourself a target. And he said, now you say, how do I get passive income that gives me 400,000? Because maybe how do I do that? It takes me so hard.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, is maybe returns at about 10%. So that means I have to put in how much?
Yes.
4M
That's a
to
lot
get.
of
So
money.
where do I get 4M? Therefore, the conversation is, so how do I do it? The greatest lesson I learned from this guy is just give yourself a target and make 1 shilling in the month of February of passive income. Don't say 200, don't say 700. Just say, tomorrow I'll wake up and make a deal. And I actually found a place. You can put 2,500 shillings and make passive income of 20 bob. Say, so that's possible. Now start to work on that farmer mentality. Where you put that 2,500? Put a little more. Just a little more.
Yeah.
If you commit to doing that for the next 30 years,
Yes.
your passive income in the next 30 years will give you back what you were hoping you'll be getting that 400,000 now. And if you're lucky, and if you put in the work, you'll have a house, you'll have whatever, and a passive income continuing to flow. This thing about the cumulative returns of money is the key, the secret of making money in our generation. It's not mohoda, and then you turn it around, because that's what we believe is the way.
Yeah.
This understanding for how money works may not be in our culture or model, but if you can understand that money can be multiplied a little by this cumulative interest, this little thing where you start 2 bob now, 2 bob tomorrow. And you know what? One last thing I want to say here is, who is the person producing that income? Me, okay.
Yeah.
Who do you pay first? Landlord? School fees?
Ulipe kafuliza.
Fuliza? You know what? But then Fuliza usaidia zaidi. Lakini I would say, stay away from that culture. Stay away from that culture. But I would say, when you put that list of who needs to take that 400,000, jiweke kwa hiyo list. We pay tithe. Alafu, I'm talking to pastors. Tithe. Ningesema hivi. Do your tithe. Pay God first. So you connect to the models of the kingdom of multiplication. But pay yourself. What is paying yourself? This 2,500.
Yes.
Increase it. That's what paying yourself. And do not pay rent. Do not pay these other things before you pay something here. If you can do that now, that passive income in 20, 30 years will take care of you.
I love what you're sharing, because ni hiyo kidogo kidogo. Mswahili alisema haba na haba.
Hujaza.
Si haba mbili. Hujaza kigava. And sometimes we want the big instant, because even of the betting culture we have in the country. Unataka tu uomoke na one day.
Hunter mentality.
Yes, the hunter mentality.
Is behind the betting culture.
Now, I'm believing for a dinosaur, not even an elephant. Today I'll come home with a dinosaur. How I'll carry it, I don't know. So I really love what you're sharing. Before we shut down this interview, I think there's another aspect of investment that is very important that sometimes we ignore, and that's relationships. Because I believe relationships are very, very, very important. I think it was in the last episode or the episode before we were talking about retirement and preparing for retirement. And one of the key things that came out is people don't prepare for retirement considering the social aspect. All your friendships were in Nairobi. And now suddenly you've retired and your kids want you to go back to Geshagi. To do what? To spend time with who? You even die early. So, Pastor, what can you tell us about investing in relationships and what's the importance of that?
I think relationships are really key because a lot of our business ideas come through relationships.
Yeah.
A lot of our mentorship comes through relationships. And I'm a firm believer also in partnership, because my strength is not your strength. You may be eloquent, very well spoken. Maybe I don't have the same level of eloquence, but I'm more sort of studious.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the whole issue of communicating with others, you're a good communicator. When it comes to the whole issue of maybe the back office, the accounts, I'm better at that. So that whole aspect of partnerships, learning to work together to get to this goal. One of the things that we did along this financial journey, and it does not mean we're there, but just along the journey was
Yeah.
to study the Israeli culture. And one of the things about the Israeli culture is that, especially in the early 40s, 50s, because their focus was so much in survival, they would, go into an area, then invite their fellow Israelis into this area,
Yes.
gang up together, build together. Until now, I don't know what percentage of lawyers, for example, in New York, are actually Israeli of Jewish origin.
Yeah.
So it was a question of working together, and that is back to relationships. We will not get there. I think the Chinese said, if you want to, go here, set your own goal. But if you want to go far, build relationships. Develop networks, and those networks become very, very important, especially when it comes to unlocking new business opportunities, getting into areas that you have no idea about. So I may be an accountant and I know how to handle the account side, but I have no idea about this area. So if I can get somebody who can be a front in that area, then they can help me to jump or to break into that area.
Yes.
So one of the things that has been said about poverty is also a reflection of lack of relationships. We are in poverty because we don't have people that we value around us. Mentors, partners, business associates, people to walk with and to journey with. So if we're going to break through, like I remember recently, some friends of mine made an investment in an area that was not their traditional home, but it was a traditional home of one of them. So he said, hey, by the way, I found land in this area. This area is good for this kind of business. Come. And so he got a few more guys from different communities. They went together, and they were able to break into that ground, not because they were from that community, but because one of them came from that community, and they leveraged on that relationship to step in. And because this was a long-term business, they were planting trees. So, you can be assured that maybe in the next 10 years, by the time this seed is maturing, these trees are being harvested.
Wow. I feel like I should have been taking notes. I'll go back to the recording. My time is almost up. My producer is showing me signs and wonders. And so I'm I want to give you, I'm telling you, I want to give you, each one of you a minute just to give us your parting shot. But for its own condition, you use that word again.
Ambidextrous kingdom entrepreneurs.
Hallelujah.
What does ambidextrous kingdom entrepreneurs look like? You're now playing a higher game, supernatural, and the best practices being brought together. We need to engage. There's a God who is in us, who's given us the power to create wealth. That's supernatural. Then go doing the work. Do not sleep on the day of harvest. Connect those two, you will create profit.
Wow. Awesome. That's the parting shot.
I would say discipline. Just learn to discipline yourself, discipline your expenditure, and then develop partnerships. Where you are weak, find a partner that is strong in that area so that you may complement one another to get to the place of financial fulfillment.
Awesome. Gentlemen, my time is up for tonight. I hope you got something out of this conversation. If there's one thing I've learned is when you really sit down to think about something and to think it through. I keep telling people, if I throw 5 of you in that room and I tell you will not leave that room until you come up with an idea where we can make at least 100,000 every month, how long will it take you? Imagine you will sit down and you will come up with ideas. Let's not just be on autopilot. Let's think, let's connect. It is possible. Thank you for watching. Have a great night and God bless you.